So I want to walk through some problems, or just two problems with notes receivable. We'll work the final two in class. They're a little bit more difficult. But of course, as always, feel free to get your feet wet and try them yourself. We start with the simple case where we have a $300,000 note in 3 years with a rate of interest of 10% stated on the note, as well as a 10% market rate. So in this case then, whenever we have the stated rate of interest equal the market rate of interest, we have a very simple scenario play out. So when the market rate equals the stated rate, what happens is this forces the present value to be equal to the future value. So in this case, we are willing to pay the future value today for the future value in years from now. So that sounds kind of funny, right? I'm willing to pay the future value today to get that money back, the same amount of money back, a certain number of years from now. And the only reason why this happens is when people are paying a stated rate that is equal to the risk that I'm willing to bear in dealing with this person. Because that means that the stated rate is covering all of the time value of money, so that there is no difference in what I'm willing to receive today, pay today and receive in the future. So when we initially record it, the PV is equal to the FV, which makes us record the exact same thing for the note receivable and the service revenue. Remember that the note receivable is recorded at the face value, and what we give up in consideration for the note receivable, whether it be a service, an asset, or money, is the present value. Now, at the end of the year when we accrue interest, again, nothing really interesting happens under the state where the market and the stated rate are the same, because we have very fixed calculations for the amount of interest I am to receive, either in cash or as an accrual, and the interest revenue that I would recognize at the end of any period. And the interest receivable is going to be based on the future value and the stated rate. Those two never change. Well, when the stated rate equals the market rate, obviously those two items are equal, and the future value will equal the carrying value, because the carrying value is equal to the present value at any point in time. So those are the same. Again, it leaves no room for a plug, no need to amortize any discount or premium, and we just record the accrual of the cash that we're going to receive as interest, and the revenue that we earn for having given our services basically for free, right? Because we're not going to get paid for a number of years. When the note matures, we will pay $390,000 in cash and zero out my interest receivable, because I've been accruing this for 3 years now. 3 times this has occurred. And then the amount that we were promised at maturity, the $300,000, also comes due, and we receive cash for that as well. It's not typically the case that all interest will come due at maturity. We will more likely have payments of interest over time, which is fine. You would just debit cash instead of interest receivable when those payments came, and then you wouldn't have any interest receivable down here, and you would only be paid $300,000 at maturity. So now let's move to a bit of more interesting problem where the stated rate of interest and the market rate of interest are not equal to one another. And in fact, what we find in this scenario for this problem is that the stated rate of interest is greater than the market rate of interest. So if the stated rate of interest is greater than the market rate of interest, what you want to think about is that we are being overcompensated for risk, for the risk of the borrower in particular. Now, whenever we are working a problem, we are always going to attach or be interested in the borrower's market rate of interest. We don't care about the person who's supplying the capital. Their market rate of interest, their riskiness is not in question. It's the person who's borrowing money and making a promise to pay us back. That's the person whose risk we want to be interested in, right? When we look at the specifics of the problem, everything's the same as it was in the basic example. A $300,000 future value, 3 years, that's our N. The rate that is stated on the note is 12%. We're going to use that to calculate our payment. And the market rate demanded for issuers with this sort of credit is 10%, so that is our I. So we want to calculate the present value of this note. That means that we're going to use the future value of $300,000. The payment is going to be equal to 12% times the face, which gives me 36,000, N is going to be 3, and I is going to be the market rate of interest. It is imperative that you come to class on Thursday being able to identify all of these and to calculate the payment. We can't waste time with you not understanding that the market rate of interest is the I, not the stated rate of interest, or that the amount of payment is calculated by taking the stated rate times the face value, right? We need to get on board. We need to get going on this really quickly. We only have 4 days to cover a lot of material, and so I can't, suffer time with people just not doing basic preparation and knowing definitions. When we do this, then the present value is going to be 314,921. You could use a calculator, you could use table factors, and we got 314,000, which is greater than the amount that we're going to be paid back. Well, why would I want to pay more today for a lesser amount in the future? And the answer is because I'm getting a 12% payment when all I really need is 10%. And because of this overcompensation of interest, because I'm getting $36,000 when really all I'd be demanding is $30,000, then I'm willing to pay a little bit extra today to get the rights to that note, right? It's not just me, of course. This is a whole market that is bidding this up to the appropriate price point where it would sell. And what we'll find is that because of the offsetting payments, really then we're effectively getting a 10% payment. Because I'm paying more for less in the future, I am earning 10%, which is the true rate I should earn. Right? If you didn't follow that last part, it's okay. We'll talk this up a lot of times. But you should follow this part. Right? This is the basic part. All right. Whenever we record the issue, we have a note receivable. Remember that the note receivable will be at the face value of the note. We have service revenue, and that service revenue that we earned would be at the present value of the note, $314,921. And then we'd have a premium account between these two. The premium on the note receivable, remember the premium would be an adjunct account, and so it'll add to my overall balance sheet valuation. What you're going to see is that when we have a note receivable, we're going to debit the face value, and then we're not going to touch it again. The next time we're going to actually interact with the note receivable account is when it is sold or when it matures, and then we're just going to zero it out. So there's no action in the note receivable account. All of the action will occur in the premium account that is attached to it, which is our adjunct account. And since it's adjunct to an asset, we know that debits increase it and credits decrease it, as it follows the rules of its parent. This also means that when we report this on the balance sheet, we want to add those two together. That's the carrying value of my note, because that's the amount that I'd find on the balance sheet at 1,113. Okay. It becomes very important to track the carrying value. So, once you have this established, you know what the face value of your note is. You don't really have to follow up on this account, but you definitely need to follow up on the premium account because this is going to change. So let's look at the year end, the first day that the premium is going to change. is when we accrue interest at year end. So remember, when we accrue interest, we're going to be, perhaps we'll receive cash, but if we don't receive cash on that day, then we'll record interest receivable. We will be recognizing interest revenue. And we will also be recognizing any amortization to the discount or premium accounts. So I have, in this case, the note says I'm not going to pay interest till maturity, and so I'll record it as interest receivable until I get that cash at maturity. I am going to record interest revenue. So interest receivable is going to be the payment every time. It's just the face value times the stated rate. And so it will stay locked at $36,000 every time we record this entry at year end. Remember that interest revenue is a little more complex. Interest revenue is more complex because it depends on the carrying value, and we multiply that by the market rate. The carrying value is going to be something that fluctuates over time. Remember that premium account starts at $14,921 at issue, but part of this entry is going to be to reduce it so that it'll change. Now, it starts off at $14,921. Remember, the carrying value of my note was $314,921. I haven't changed anything with the NR over the year. I haven't changed anything on the premium over the year. So these things stay as the carrying value. But more importantly, you're always worried about the carrying value at the beginning of the year to determine how much interest revenue you should charge for the year. So we want the carrying value at the beginning of the year, which is $314,921. Multiply that by 10%, and then we get $31,492. And then the premium would be the plug, the difference between the two, to make this balance, and we get $4,508. So we reduce the premium account since we just logged a credit, and the remaining balance is $10,413. This informs a new carrying value. Remember, I said you don't really have to keep track of the note receivable. Its value doesn't change, but this will change over time. Now we have a carrying value that is equal to, at 12/31/13 after adjustment, is going to be $310,413, the note receivable plus this balance. That's important to know because then this gives me the carrying value for January 1st, 2014, which is going to be used to calculate interest revenue the next year. So my interest revenue is $310,413. That's my carrying value, multiplied by the market rate of interest, gives me that interest revenue there. So my interest receivable does not change. It's the uninteresting portion of this. Face value times the stated rate, both of them are locked. The interest revenue, I just calculated below, and that will be $31,041. And again, the premium is just going to be the difference between these two, the plug, and then the premium between these would be $4,959. So again, I want to update my premium account. Starts at 10,413. I credited it for 4,959. Now I'm left with a balance of 5,454. Now, what you're going to see is that in this final entry, if everything has been done correctly, the premium on NR account will be zeroed out with this last accrual of interest, which is what we want. At maturity, any premium or any discount will be fully amortized. Remember that the carrying value at the end of the year after adjustment is going to change $305,454. Use this updated carrying value to determine interest revenue. That's my new interest revenue. I call it my new interest revenue because it's changed. The interest receivable does not change. Still 36,000. And the difference between these two then hopefully will be roughly my premium if we've done everything correct. And it is 5,455, which is $1 off, but I'm not going to worry about that. It's $1 off because there's some issues with rounding when you deal with the present values, and it gets a little bit compounded. It won't ever be huge unless you're dealing with millions and millions of dollars. So essentially we've zeroed this out. And then the carrying value at 12/31/15 after adjustment would be $300,000, which notice I said before at maturity, the carrying value is going to equal the future value, or the present value, which is the carrying value, which will equal the future value at maturity. And the future value was 300,000. And the reason why that happens is now we've eliminated all our premium or discount. Whenever we pay the note, this is a pretty simple journal entry then. We get cash for those 3 interest payments plus the maturity on the note. That would amount to 408,000 overall. We eliminate the interest receivable of 108,000 and eliminate the note receivable. Notice we haven't touched that the whole time until the note matures, and then we zero it out. Right. So that's how you work a problem, notes receivable. And again, the sort of beauty part of all this, I know that's a lot of calculations, but it's iterative calculations where you're applying the same process over and over and over again. The nice part about it is that when we have a premium or discount on a debt investment, we're going to treat it the same way. When we have a premium or a discount on the bonds payable, we're going to treat it the same way. Everything shifts slightly because we're talking about a liability rather than an asset, but the math, the process remains the same. So if you get this process down, then you're serving yourself well for the next chapters. If you don't get this process down, then you're screwed. And that's just the truth. I can't really sugarcoat it. So make sure you understand what I'm doing here. I'm going to show it to you in a few different formats. I'm going to give you shortcuts. But until you understand how to do this the long way, it will not make sense and you're going to screw stuff up. All right. So next stop is investments.